let me move to Robert. Robert, you are the member for Legco in the financial services constituency. So I'm sure you have spoken to a lot of companies about the development of digital assets. Can you share about your work over the past year?
Thank you. Thank you, Alex, for the opportunity to speak. As a new Legco member joining, my term started on January 1st, 2022, and a big part of my objective is to have a more diversified development within our financial services industry, away from just the traditional cash equities into derivatives, commodities, futures, precious metals with focus on precious metals, as well as asset management, corporate finance, and specifically virtual assets. In other innovative areas, things that don't exist now. I think to kind of be very open and accepting of innovation and to be innovative in general is very important. So in the past year, a lot of the work has been kind of obviously with the AML amendment bill, which includes the virtual asset service provider licensing regime. I think the FTX incident recently, I think, shows that we do need proper regulation, but at the same time, working a lot with HKDAS, our government, specifically Financial Services Treasury Bureau, and different stakeholders. Traditional companies within the financial services space, they are looking for other ways to do other products and services, and I think virtual assets is a piece of that. Obviously, prior to this bill coming in play, I think people in the industry were participating, but maybe not through Hong Kong, but as Hong Kong as an international financial center, we should be in the middle of this action. We should be taking the lead and doing more in this area. So I think that's why the communication, and I really do appreciate Undersecretary Joseph Chan and their team at the FSTB, different stakeholders, regulators, HKDAS, the industry. And I think there's a lot of collaboration across sectors. With Duncan, I've had countless conversations, and I'm doing a lot of reading and learning more from Alex and Duncan as well. So throughout this process, I think what we talked about in the Bills Committee in Legco is we need to be more open, and I think one thing we did achieve in Legco is to not have a professional investor explicitly written in black and white within the bill. I think that is important to then move forward to look at the possibility of opening up to retail investors, and really coming from the standpoint of protecting retail investors. Precisely for this reason, we should not only restrict it to professional investors. A lot of these retail investors may be using unlicensed platforms. They will use go overseas, right? So I think this is something that is a continual process. We'll keep working with various stakeholders. And I think a lot of key point today is a lot of youth in the audience, and I think giving youth more opportunities in terms of what they want to do within the traditional financial services space, and when they participate in these products, we hope that a lot of this activity can happen in Hong Kong through a lot of our financial service providers. So maybe I'll open with that and share more in a little bit. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Robert. I think the FTX incident is really making the industry player more willing to embrace regulation. I think this is a good thing for the whole industry. I would also like to chat with the financial experts. Right? After this announcement of the policy statement, what do you think is the change in investor appetite in this industry? Robert, anything to share?
Sure. Thank you, Alex. I think the policy statement coming out of the HKDAS government, and as I mentioned, a lot of the communications with FSTB, I think is a very, very positive sign for the industry, especially after 3 years of the pandemic. Hong Kong's been through a lot, right? So the message is clear that we're open for business. We embrace innovation. So first and foremost, the attitude, and then I think the message to the world, really. Hong Kong, we're obviously last year celebrating 25 years of establishment. So we have a large Chinese market, and at the same time we connect with the world, right? We're an international city. So for a lot of traditional financial services players that are looking to expand beyond what they have done in the past, I think this is a clear sign. So they don't, first and foremost, they don't have to go to Singapore, go to other places, right? Like we embrace this. And at the same time, I think even in my office, I've met with a lot of people that have come from overseas back to Hong Kong, trying to understand what's the latest on the regulation, right? So we're moving past just thinking about Hong Kong as a place to, grow business, attract the talents, to more, okay, now we're applying for licenses, we can't open bank accounts, and maybe it's difficult to get some insurance coverage, things like that, right? So when these kind of issues come up, then my office tries to help with that, and this is a good sign, right? If you're not hearing from people and people aren't even considering you, then that's the problem. So I think the message is clear that opportunity exists, and I think I agree with Duncan's comment earlier about the wider scope, right? Just beyond trading virtual assets, crypto. I think finance and technology has since the beginning of its history has always been interlinked. So I think for companies that are in various stages of development, there are some that are very in advanced stages that have been operating for years, right? But there are also others that are trying to understand it. So I think the investor education, promotion, events like this is very helpful. And I think in the past, since that policy statement, I think the industry has tried to create more events. A few months back, we did a FinTech forum. So it's a larger scope of how can FinTech technology help financial services. So one example is obviously with Secretary Sun Dong here, there's a technology voucher program. So when industry players, they apply for this and then they incur problems or difficulties, then we try to follow up, and because the money is there, right? The subsidy is there. We want the industry players to apply for it and use these resources. The HKDAS government has, I think, close to 40 plus subsidies that can help small to medium sized enterprises. So the message of whether it's in the bigger area of AI, blockchain, cloud computing, big data, and a lot of financial services, they use a lot of applications, front-end applications, back-end applications, mobile apps, and automation. How can we make the user experience when they first open an account easier, non-face-to-face account opening? So a big part of that is kind of bridging the gap between traditional financial services, regulation, what we want to achieve in terms of a lot of various stakeholders. How can we bring everything together? So from China central government's perspective, where are we going, right? And from Hong Kong government's perspective, policy address, where are we going? And then the technology side, the financial side, regulation side. So bringing everything together, I think that policy statement is a loud and clear message. We're open for business. We want to do more business and kind of deepen that. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. The term fintech is really the biggest buzzword